Welcome all. To start, I would like to open with a small portion from The Strength of Fields by James Dickey. This is one of my favorite poems, and I think it will set the tone quite nicely for the afternoon. So this is The Strength of Fields. Moth Force, a small town, always has given the night. What field forms can be, outlying the small civic light decisions over a man walking near home. Men are not where he is exactly now, but they are around him like the strength of field. The solar system floats on above him in town moths. Tell me, train sound, with all your long lost grief, what I can give. Dear Lord of all the fields, what am I going to do? Street lights, blue force, frail as the homes of men. Tell me how to do it, how to withdraw, how to penetrate and find the source of the power you always had. Light as a moth and rising with the level and moonlit expansion of the fields around and the sleep of hoping men. You, I, what difference is there? We can all be saved by a secret blooming. Now, as I walk the night and you walk with me, we know simplicity is close to the source that sleeping men search for in their home deep beds. We know that the sun is away. We know that the sun can be conquered by moths in blue hometown air. The stars splinter, pointed and wild. The dead lie under the pastures. They look on and help. Tell me, freight train, when there is no one else to hear, tell me in a voice the sea would had if it had not a better one. As it lifts hundreds of miles away, its fumbling, deep structured roar, like the profound, unstoppable craving of nations for their wish. Hunger, time, and the moon lying on the brain, as on the excited sea, as on the strength of fields. Lord, let me shake with purpose. Wild hope can always spring from tended strength. Everything is in that and nothing but kindness. More kindness, dear Lord of the renewing green. That is where it all has to start, with the simplest things. More kindness will do nothing less than save every sleeping one and night walking one of us. My life belongs to the world. I will do what I can. Thank you. And thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. To start, I am going to introduce the magnificent Nicelle Davis. Nicelle Davis is a California poet. Her poetry collections include The Walled Wife, Red Hen Press, 2016, In the Circus of You, Rose Metal Press, 2015, Becoming Judas, Wrenhead Press, 2013, and Circe, Lowbrow Press, 2011. Her poetry film collaborations with Cheryl Gross have been shown across the world. She is the creator of the Poetry Circus and collaborator on the Nevermore Poetry Festival. That being said, Nicelle, please come on, join us.
Hi guys, hello. Oh my goodness. Okay. It's great to be here with the great Deena Metzger, right? I have like an anecdote. Hi, I have an anecdote. So I was working for Red Hen Press, and one of the things I was doing is I was transporting poets to different reading series. And I was lucky enough to have lunch a couple times with Deena, and she's magical and smart and gracious and all the things that she does. But what I didn't know about her house is that she has wolves. And so I drove up late at night to go pick up a poet to go deliver him for his reading. And I pulled off to the side of the road, and I couldn't really find the turnoff to her house. I'm like walking up, and there are wolves like sort of stalking me against the fence work going up to her house. So that's what I remember of Deena Metzger, is being chased by wolves into her house. It was Magical. I was like, only, and it was like a full moon, right? Like everything. So, Deena, thank you for being a real poet. You know what I mean? So, like,
I guess it means you have wolves.
it does, either
Right?
inside or out of you, but you're going to have wolves somewhere if you're a poet. So I feel really, really, really excited and grateful to be here. I think what Deena and I share is sort of this strange and deep connection and relationship with the planet, and feminism, and kind of the intersections of how that works. I mean, I have some books, but what I'd really like to read from today is a new collection I've been working on. Suzanne Lummis has been like holding my hand through the process of it and really showing me how to be a poet. I'm okay. So Allison's here, Hannah's here, Jeremy's here. Let's see who else has been holding my hand through this book. Like half the poets in this meeting have been contributing to these poems. So I can't even say I wrote them. I like co-wrote them with half the room. So thank you. So these poems during the quarantine, I was really oh, Suzanne Helemis just gave me a heart. It's so disruptive. I can't, like, I just have to blush. And so during quarantine, I'm a teacher, so I'm used to having like anywhere from 200 to 300 students that I'm just sort of doting on. And when we went into quarantine, I just didn't have anyone to care for. And then I saw all these names of people who were dying without burial. And then I also like had a lot of family members who were affected by it, and namely my father, who's really struggling to breathe these days. And so in order to find something to channel my impulses into, I ended up accumulating like almost 300 houseplants. I counted them before I came to this poetry reading. So I have 300 houseplants. And I'm not the only one. There was a whole movement during the pandemic of people acquiring houseplants. Houseplants can be as expensive as like $500,000. So they're the new status symbol. So instead of diamonds, people are now collecting houseplants. And instead of poaching elephants, people are poaching succulents. And so I think this is a really interesting narrative about what we do with the world when we think it's ending. So I asked some poets to send me some questions about my houseplants. And then I tried to answer them in slant. So here's a couple of those poems for you guys. So this question came from poet Katie Manning. She teaches at Point Loma. She runs Well Road Review, and I'm doing a name drop for her right now because she's probably the most kindest, most supportive poet / publisher I've ever met. And so if you're ever looking for someone to like submit poems to, Katie Manning is your girl. Like she will just love you through your entire poetry career. So these are questions by Katie Manning, and then I answer it as poetically as I can. So the question is, will flowers grow if they're watered with tears or blood? An albo monstera goes for about $15,000 online. Its whiteness, even if a disease, brings in clients. During quarantine, I had a plant dealer. We met where the 14 intersects the 5 freeway. Nurseries held up at gunpoint. It required many hands for one cell. So many plants stolen from native soil. A response to death? Time. What you got for me? I'm willing to negotiate, so long as you don't shoot at the roots of the world. What I'm saying is, love, I want you even though wanting is the bullet. This plant question came from Megan Kaminsky, who's like an eco poet and like someone that I really highly recommend you guys looking up. She's just a little genius eco poet. And her question is, what can you learn from your plant friends? I have about 200 houseplants. All their names are on YouTube. I practice saying them with plant influencers correctly in slow phonic pieces. Alocasia zebrina. None of them asked to be these names. My son pretends the TV remote works on me, exaggerating the push of buttons. He's a virtuoso of quiet. What made me think silence had any use for me? Every day, the same song. Despite me, don't die, but grow. Another question from the great Katie Manning. So, if plants outlived everything except roaches, which plant would it be? There are 7 abstractions vying for our alarm clocks. Love gets me every time. I was taught by white men that their less than 7 inches was the key to heaven, literally. Ask Joseph Smith, with that Roman nose that gets me from across any crowded room. Colt at first sight. Let's be real. Sex is better when God's inside you. Grooming and make the girl feel pretty until she's used it. Up where? If men are celestial, we're terrestrial. It takes work to be my own friend. The summer before my grandmother died, she rubbed dandelions into my skin. Grow, she told me, and I turned gold. So those so those are my poems about plants. I have a very strange and somewhat long poem that I think I want to end with. I think the best way to do this is to show you. So it's a 3-section poem that intersects with itself. It almost sounds like the ocean is in it. You hear that in the audio? It's almost like an ocean sound.
Yeah, your audio is a little underwater.
Oh, I'm so sorry, guys.
Oh, it just came back.
Oh, came back? Yeah.
Magic. It's okay. We just needed a little mutual connection. It's all good.
It's amazing. All you have to do is like ask the universe to help you out, right? It's funny how it works. So along with the plant poems, I've been working on these Ars Poeticas, but they're like almost anti-Ars Poeticas. So they're labeled Ars. So ARS and then OURS. So these sort of things when they, the things that matter to us, right? So Rs/Rs is a layered narrative. And the secondary title to this has 3 parts to it. So it's no small thing. There is a poet in this poem. It's not you, it's me. So we'll see if this poem works out loud. It's my first time, like I'm excited to try it. It's almost like boarding a runaway train. So here we go, guys. All right. He bought coffee before the killing. Before we get started, here are the things I don't know. How the dead rise, why a cage opens. I take stories, as in I steal them. In the end, gossips don't have friends. I mean poets. I mean, I open every closed box I find. Here now is the story as I've carried it 13 years. He ordered a basic McDonald's black. Styrofoam wasn't a known issue then. Is it murder if you don't see blood on your hands? Always a demand for clarity. He equals Todd. Todd equals my uncle. Todd moved into his parents' home after the house killed them. Faulty furnace, carbon monoxide. I remember how he rubbed holes in his palms, a self-inflicted stigmata. He wrote his name on the cup using his fingernail and pressure, a shadow signature. Metonymy is my favorite magic trick. Look, too late. Nearly see what is missed, the isn't. Here a body, but the life? Shake the box, hear it rattle. I still believe we have a soul, just one for all of us, broken and glistening like beach glass, something like trash. It's beautiful. He spent some time rolling his index over the ridge of the T and odd of his name. This isn't my story, but I'm related to it. My uncle has a phobia of dog spit, but took me to concerts when post-divorce dates stood him up. That is, he's not exactly nurturing, but he saved me from myself more times than I can cut. Family is having someone find you when the world becomes an empty box. Morning was brisk with steam breathing off the lake, such a large mouth for silence. He thought about life in waves. Sometimes I think for others in a poem. We are all in this, like children swimming in summer. I'm referencing Keats here. I'm that kind of precocious bitch. You do not work the lake out. It is an experience beyond thought. I want to live in those waters. That is, I never want to feel unloved. But there's the shore and the chores that go with it. Someone has to be the killer. It's promised in the first line of every story. Waves clicking at the shores like an old woman suckling her teeth. He felt some sort of self-judgment, but not anything worth stopping for. Raccoon explosion. I had to Google why authorities exterminate some life and not others. It all comes down to hats. Clarity. If it can be trapped and worn, it's state protected. What and how we value life feels like an illness. Shake the box. Hear the loose parts. Animal control said, drown it. The divorce had him thinking about raccoon orgasm. Hissing scared him. No one saw how he jumped when the trap conceived this wild notion. A pregnant hat or a pregnant raccoon? My uncle was told to trap and kill. This was just after he buried his son. Briefly, a CV brought to you by a dead boy named Nicholas. You can find the YouTube ghost voice in the link below. No breath coming up, the small cup lid when bubbles finally stopped rising. Dying takes longer than patience has depth. Try to imagine the dimensions of that box. My son is 13. His room is filling floor to ceiling with damp tissues, a nation of conception unconceived. When I had my son alone in the hospital, it was my cousin Nicholas who called me daily. He was alone in a hospital too. I did not name my son after Nick. During the chemo, eating felt like swallowing razors. At Easter breakfast, we all waited hours for Nicholas to finish a small cup of yogurt. We watched as if waiting for death, who had better things to do than us. It is so easy to forget life when working on the shores. Part of the divorce had to do with the kids. It always does. Ordinary by numbers. Todd's son was 22 when he stopped aging. Do you care about this one boy? Do I mean my cousin or my son? Do you have one of these? Make mine yours, or be the empty bed. Nick's last words are really a scene. He is home, gone unconscious. His father picks him up. Nick comes to, and like a child learning the names of important things, says, "Oh, a hug," and dies in his father's arms. Sure, enough for clarity. So many names in the New York Times during COVID. I tried to put each name on. I couldn't name my son after a dead one. Cage pulled up and put in the passenger seat. Todd thought to bury it in the backyard. 10 minutes from home is where most accidents happen. Holes in his palms. Todd moved into my grandparents' house so we could keep going to the family-sized coffin, so we could hear the house rattling. At times, the house would rattle. There is more to this story. There always is. Nick was the last male heir, namesake lost. A war curse? I've Googled images of Agent Orange babies. What is your more? I forget to ask. I forget love is a question. Spattering and convulsing, the wet raccoon rose like a memory of swimming, urgency of not going under while underwater, that mad rage for life. A window lowered instinctively, a raccoon jumped from the moving vehicle. Nothing could tie a sun to its body. Breathing can take your breath away. There is an empty cup on the shore. Would you have guessed a hat came back to life inside a raccoon's body? Something like a miracle here. Something like a void of miracle too. Whew, we made it, guys. Whoa, okay. We made it. Those long poems are scary, but we made it. So this is what I've been working on so far, and I'm just really grateful to be here and can't wait to hear what Deena has for us. So I'll turn it over there.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And it's so good to hear you working on new things. I've been following your plants and poetry projects, and I'm so excited for hopefully for the return of the poetry circus one day. It's fantastic.
So many beautiful lines in the work that you have read to us, and it was just so inspiring. I thank you so much. It's wonderful to hear new work, and it's even more wonderful to hear new work that is has blossomed already. So thank you.
Seconded. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. All right, we have Deena Metzger. Deena Metzger is the author of 20 plus books, including the novels La Vieja, A Journey of Fire, March 2022, A Reign of Night Birds, La Negra y Blanca, Penn Oakland Award for Literature, Feral, The Other Hand. Her experiences with elephants in the wild over 20 years is based on their spiritual agency and complex narrative communication. Some of that experience is chronicled in her latest novel, La Vieja, A Journey of Fire. Please welcome me in joining Deena Metzger.
Thank you so much. Feels like 100 years since I've given a reading. And though I've been on Zoom far too many times in the last 2.5 years teaching, I haven't done any readings on Zoom. So I'm very excited to be here. What was dropped from the bio that I think I need to add is that I'm reading from 2 books, Ruin and Beauty, Red Hen, and The Burden of Light, Hand to Hand press. So I'm just delighted. And Nicelle, I think there's one poem in particular that I think will resonate with what you just read. And so at least a part of it. So I'm glad to have that connect with you. This first poem is called Song. It because it was created into a song which has pretty much gone around the world by the singer-songwriter Charlie Murphy. Song. There are those who are trying to set fire to the world. We are in danger. There is time only to work slowly. There is no time not to love. So that was written one war or another, and it keeps coming up again and again. The aftermath. If in the aftermath of darkness, a sun falls on us in its silver casing, how will we meet that blinding light? I do not want to love you to extinction, but in the way of the hearth fire, the small candle, and the lowly match. Gulls. A slight movement toward the hard crusts we've gathered in a paper bag incites the gulls from the 4 directions. The empty sky floods with wings as they land and take off again, land and take off again. These hungry ones fly toward us in an explosion of beauty, not unlike dawn rupturing the dark or sunset smearing its violet golden light. Across the advent of night, their beaks are crimson with their desire for the small offerings we bring to provoke their dance. But we never bring enough simple bread with us to satisfy our craving for their presence, for the birds reaching toward the hands we extend to them, tireless in motion, and motionless as they hover in the air just by our fingertips. That we should be met this way, that our appetite should be rewarded by such grace, the utter glory of it. So I realized only after putting this reading together that I seem to have come to the place where I'm mostly writing about animals and birds and the natural world. It was an interesting reflection. Death, black as a crow. It could not bring me to believe in death. Feathers so radiant could only be the night sky, could only be eternity. A stream of blood from its yellow beak drying on the pavement. The roots of the tree were not the right burial ground. A neighbor's cat was wandering up and down the entrance to the shul among the olive trees, and though the ravens had fed Elijah, I could not bring this one who had received the gift of dark from Apollo to Kol Nidre, the Hebrew prayer for the dead. We spoke, he and I, as I drove us home, of what concerns all sentient beings, of all the vehicles that kill. This morning, I laid him on the hill at the feet of Avalokiteshvara, infinite compassion. I stroked his feathers. I wanted the dark light on my hands. I did not take a wing or a single feather, though I knew the animals will dismember him despite his shroud of pine needles and tobacco. Here is my prayer. Do not forgive us our transgressions. Let the black light that surrounds you meet the ancient fire in the core of the earth for the marriage of prophecy and possibility. Sunlight, inherent in your beak, speak to us. Death, be so tender with me when you lay my body down. Between the worlds, flesh like metal, spirit like mist, teach me the gate of the luminous wolves drinking from the dark river. In those waters, the stones sing. Can the world mend in this body? 13 dark moons. 13 ring-necked pigeons appear, each one a dark moon so visible in daylight, with a band of moonstone around its neck and a flurry of light hidden in the underside of a fan of tail feathers that opens in flight and when landing. They gather this morning as soon as the seeds are offered. Then they return to the trees to sing the song their ancestors taught them in the beginning, when all beings partook and drank of beauty as if it were pure water. Bears in the snow. After the knowledge that the polar bear, who must live on ice, is drowning, as her ice floe melts before it makes its way to land 70 miles away. I wonder what it serves to put one word after another on the white page, even like this. As last night's snowstorm drips in long, luminescent streaks from the porch down to the earth and slithers down the hill to the stream bed. What was gathered through the blessing of the storm is undoing itself Even on the mountain, the white cache of water disperses. We do not know what the black bear will drink, or whether there will be berries when the summer comes, or words that meet the moment as divine whiteness entirely disappears. So, this poem, I think you'll recognize a little, Nicelle. Rats. The ordeal of the wounded rat that I ordered killed, with her family, if necessary, by setting the guillotine after several years' dispensation for not heeding the relocation order and refusing to enter the safe transport that had taken their relatives, dozens upon dozens of them, to a specially designated preserve, a reservation, if you will. The ordeal of the wounded rat dragging herself across the bar of my closet, blood flowing onto the walls and clothes, staining my best dresses that had been soaked in urine from her leafy nests inside the chewed ceilings and the hidden places behind boots and skirts. The ordeal of the wounded rat dragging herself across the bar of my closet, blood flowing, her eye bulging from the metal shaft that almost took her eye when I am. The I is the holy letter of the decade that I have entered, 70. The ordeal of the wounded gnat. The ordeal of the wounded rat brought me to my knees, as well it should do to someone who's given the task of being a seer, of seeing into the past or future for everyone, including the rat mother who birthed in the skirt I wore to my son's wedding, and hungry, ate of it, her own holy communion. The ordeal of the rat, dragging herself up and down the walls, a poor wretch nailed to a cross and forced to carry it up the sacred mountain to her own death. The ordeal of the rat, the crucifix she carried, the blood dripping upon what would be her shroud. She brought me to my knees, the great rat mother, wounded in the house, on the land I had declared a sanctuary for all beings. You know, it's all going down now, don't you? Where shall we begin the rosary of grief? With the wolves they want to hunt from the sky. When they disappear, so will the trees. All beauty will go down in the bloody grave of the natural world. The deer, denied her rightful death, is sighted in the crosshairs of the rifle and sinks to her knees before the hunter trained in Vietnam or Iraq. A drone above his head seeks out his body heat and puts an end to it. He knew, didn't he, what was coming? On the ground, a robot moves unafraid, ahead of troops, shooting straight at any movement. In the short time before the enemies have their own Iron Men, we assume the drone will not frag the officers or indulge friendly fire. But you never know. Every nightmare we have imagined is being birthed now, all at once. What had been written as a warning has become strategies, tactics, and plans. I did not wish to live to see this day. Radiation burns, oil burns, phosphorus burns. The earth is burning. Everything is set on fire. Therefore, beat the man almost to unconsciousness, then plunge his head in water until he prays to drown. How many forms of torture can you name that are occurring now? Your young child, the innocent one, a gun forced into her fists, will do the same, even to you. Reb Nachman of Breslov speaks of the king who refused the portion of grain different from that would drive all the people mad. Though declining, he said, we will mark our foreheads, and seeing each other, we will know we are insane. Know that we are mad and live accordingly, also seeking the hidden passageways of beauty that insist we leave everything behind. Killjoy. When we look out at the mountains, we think we are immortal. Then we see the peaks that have been sheared, the walls and fences, lawns and roses sustained by pesticide, replacing the sage where bees once lived. Anything can be destroyed by the human hand. Sometimes a garden is an act against nature. I bought an orchard and let it go feral, but the wolf is on a leash because you will shoot her in the street and sell her pelt to someone like me. There was a poem about not telling the truth, but it was disappeared. The truth I refused was that I will die sooner than expected, and I will not be ready. I will not have done what must be done. Every day that I forget is a crime against what must be said. Evil is a plague designed as weapons of war. What if in this life I could save one creature and its life force would multiply? What if every bullet bounded back to its source? Sometimes I believe that if I could find the right prayer, the river of blood would clear. How many landmines and drones must we nullify in order to walk on the land again? We tried to save one bull elephant who was seeding generations. The hunter shot the matriarch instead. Why does killing pleasure you so? Remember when invaders came down from the north with their weapons and horses? Now we are hunting the horses. What else is there to say? We are either killing the horses and not eating them, or we are eating the horses. We are definitely killing each other. Speak to me of your appetite. A greater silence. Soon there will be a greater silence than there is now. I do not want to be here alone. When the last tree falls, may I be under it. May the last tree take me down. So I have a last poem. It's a kind of coda, and it's called Mondlovu. Mondlovu is the African word for female elephant. So Mandlovu. Suddenly, I am of a single mind, extended across an unknown geography, imprinted as if by a river on the moment, a mind held in unison by a large gray tribe, meandering in reverent concert among trees, feasting on leaves. One great eye reflecting blue from the turn inward toward the hidden sky that again, like an underground stream, continuously nourishes what will appear after the dawn, bleaches the way the mystery in which we rock through the endless green dark. I'm drawn forward by the lattice, by a concordance of light and intelligence constituted from the unceasing and constant hum of cows and the inaudible bellow of bulls, a web thrumming and gliding along the pathways we remember miles later or ages past. I am, we are. Who can distinguish us? A gathering of souls, hulking and muddied, large enough if there is a purpose to carry the accumulated joy of centuries, walking thus within each other's particular knowing and delight. This is our grace, to be a note in the exact chord that animates creation, the dissolve of all the rivers that are both place and moment, an ocean of mind moving forward and back, outside of any motion contained within it. This is particle and wave. How simple. The merest conversation between us becoming the essential drone into which we gladly disappear. A common music, a singular heavy tread, ceaselessly carving a path for the waters tumbling invisibly beneath. I have always wanted to be with them, with you. So I have always wanted to be with them, with you. So.
Deena, thank you so much. Absolutely gorgeous and devastating, much like the truth always is. I so appreciate how you have us all lean into you with your presence and with your words. Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you. I am so glad to be here, so glad to read. Yeah, splendid.
And we do have time. We have about 10 minutes left, so that gives us enough time for some questions. I have two that I've written here. If anybody has anything that you would like to contribute or ask, please do. I have posted in the chat the link to Nicelle's website and her YouTube channel. I'll repost that just right now. Deena, if you would like to private message me, I can also copy and paste that in if there's any links to any websites or resources that you would like us to pay attention to. Alrighty, thank you so much. I am just going to post Nicelle's links one more time for everybody. Thank you so much, everybody, for your commentary as the poets were speaking. I think that that's such a great way to show engagement. I appreciate you all. Here we go. Deena Metzger, perfect. Okay. And I'm just going to post Deena's right now. And please, if you have any questions, feel free to either post them and I'll read them, or you can private message me for a more direct response. So Deena, since you just read and I have you, I'm truly touched by your poetry and especially your author photo. I also am of the belief that elephants are very magical
Right.
creatures. I mean, who doesn't? But I also share that kind of connection. Recently, whether this is true or not, it makes for a wonderful image. I've learned recently or heard recently that allegedly elephants will wave sticks at the moon during particular phases, and that some have speculated that this is a form of religion. If you don't follow, or if you do follow religion in the traditional sense, I'm curious, elsewise, how do you find and seek out spirituality?
Do we have a year? Do
we have a hearing with here? Perfect. I mean, it is church.
Oh my goodness. I think that's my life, is how to find a real relationship and live in right relationship to the spiritual reality of the universe. And it seems to me that if you know that spirit exists, if you know it because of your own experience, not because anyone told you, but because it's the only logical understanding of how the universe works, then you also know how to live. And it changes everything. So that's a shorthand.
I can fully see that. Thank you so very much. That's a wonderful answer. Nicelle, I do have a question for you. It's, as I said earlier, it's so nice to see you again. All my love to you and JJ. It's been so long. It's so funny. I told my mom that I was hosting this reading and mentioned that you were doing it because she's been to the poetry circus. Like, she kind of knows about the festivals and stuff that I've been to. And she was like, "Oh, the one with the little boy." And I'm like, "He's not so little anymore. He's not 8 anymore." Which happens. That being said, I have been a longtime follower of your performance art altar. If we were to summon you as a spirit, what would we use to summon you?
Oh,
What would
Bryn.
we evoke?
Yes. I think Deena did a pretty good job with her poetry reading. Like, I think that would summon me out of an ether or grave. I think, honestly, like, I think, weird answer, but just like the comments in the chat, like, Elizabeth, like, you are such a good listener. You know what I mean? So, like, a room full of people listening, I think that could conjure me, not to like show up to the room to talk, but just to be part of the listening. Like, I think those are 2 spells that could conjure me. I think Deena Metzger poetry and a room full of active listeners. I think that would work.
I think elephants would summon you,
Nicelle. Oh my gosh, for sure, elephants. So I'm elephant obsessed too.
Perfect.
So I have a chat book about elephants, and I did a whole like elephant. I paint sometimes. I do performance. Like, I try to be as alive as I can in the short amount of time I get to be alive, And so we did the chat book, and we made art, and we did performances, and we ended up raising $5,000 for the Tennessee elephant sanctuary, which I have mixed feelings about, because we shouldn't have elephants in America, but we have a lot of elephants in America. And so I think that's such an interesting conversation about dysphoria, about just sort of the spoiled attitude of like the consumption of life, you know what I mean? And so for a while I was traveling across the United States to meet as many privately owned elephants as I could. And I'm still working on that project. Like, COVID kind of slowed that one down a little bit, but that's a weird relationship, because I do think that we have a spiritual connection to elephants because they do so many things that we do. And it's embarrassing that that's what we respond to. But but I mean, like, elephants mourn their dead and celebrate the birth of a new, yeah, I don't know. There's a lot going on there that I think is interesting. So sorry, that was too long. Thanks, Bryn.
No, it wasn't. That was the perfect amount of time. We're at 3:57, so that's wonderful. If anyone wants to chat, feel free to unmute yourselves, and we can all share in the revelry for the next couple minutes before we sign off. Thank you both so much. Thank you everyone for coming. It's been a good afternoon. Thank you, Hannah. And Avi, it's so good to see you. Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank our readers for the most astonishing afternoon of poetry, and also everyone that came. It's just so great to see an audience that that appreciates the level of wonderment experienced by our readers. So thank you all for coming. Keep an eye out for future VCP events. We're hopefully going to have some in-person things. It all depends on the universe for that, but we will keep you posted. And it's great to see everybody's faces. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Bryn, for hosting. Thank you, Jerry, if you're still with us here. I hope you're feeling up and 100% soon.
Thank you. I heard that.
Thank you, everyone. Delighted to be here. Thank you, Elizabeth and Bryn and Jerry and this event.
Thank everyone for such an inspirational reading.
Beautiful.
Thank you for coming, Doug. It's always good to see you. You're such a steady presence.
Doug is great. Doug just shows up. Sorry.
Yeah, that's the best kind of quality. You just show up.
Especially for you.
Oh, well, thanks, Doug. Thanks. I appreciate it. But yeah, no, this was so fun. I wish we were in a room, because then we could, yeah, that's hard. Yeah. But thanks, you guys. Thank you, Deena. Oh.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was very excited when I saw the lineup together. I was like, ooh, we're gonna have some magic going on. But yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
If anyone wants
I
to
think I
hop
have to go for a walk. It was such a great day.
yeah. Yeah, just soak off. Yeah, go see some nature, think about the words, buy some books, support VCP. What more can you ask for? Perfect. Yep, and we have the link to VCP SoCal in the chat right now. Otherwise, I think that just about does it.